Welcome to Hard Script.
She said it like she was doing me a favor. I care about you, but I'm not in love with you. Not during a fight. Not in anger. Not even in some dramatic breakdown. She said it on a Tuesday night. Calmly. Soft lighting. Takeout on the table. Her voice didn't shake. Mine didn't either. I just nodded, took another sip of my drink, and said, "Good to know." That was it. No scene. No begging. No, what changed? She blinked, confused. Like she expected heartbreak. Maybe even a reaction she could comfort or control. But there was nothing to comfort. Because that sentence didn't break me. It cleared the board. You see, when someone tells you they're not in love with you, believe them. Don't decode it. Don't rationalize it. Don't romanticize it. Take it for what it is, an unintentional gift. That night, I didn't storm out. I didn't sleep on the couch. I didn't slam a single door. But when she fell asleep beside me, peaceful, like she had just let go of some burden, I stared at the ceiling and did something I hadn't done in months. I smiled. Because she had no idea what she'd just unleashed. The next morning, I didn't kiss her forehead like usual. Didn't ask if she wanted coffee. I just got dressed, left the house without a sound, and went about my day like a man who had already started packing, mentally, emotionally, and financially. That evening, there were no flowers waiting on the table like there usually were every Wednesday. No playlist queued up on the speaker. No spontaneous tickets to that indie film festival she once cried over. I ate alone, worked out, took a long hot shower, and turned my phone on Do Not Disturb. She texted once. Everything okay? I let it sit unread. The next few days were the beginning of her unraveling. She noticed the difference fast. My tone didn't change, but my presence did. She started reaching, subtly at first. Extra mascara. Dinner suggestions. Sitting closer on the couch. But I wasn't rude. I wasn't cold. I just wasn't there anymore. And that was the moment the balance shifted. Because for years, I was the one planning dates. Surprising her with little notes. Staying up talking when she couldn't sleep. Playing the emotional anchor for someone who hadn't looked at me like a man in a very long time. And now? Now I was silent. Not as punishment. As a decision. Her words didn't hurt. They aligned me. They showed me just how long I'd been pouring into a cup with a hole at the bottom. So I stopped pouring. I started redirecting. And she started feeling it. Not all at once, but in waves. The absence. The detachment. The eerie calm of a man who had made up his mind, but said nothing about it. She thought, "I care about you," would earn her time, sympathy, understanding. What had earned her was distance. And that distance was about to become the loudest silence she'd ever known. The first morning she noticed, she didn't say anything. Just hovered in the kitchen a little longer than usual, waiting for me to pour her coffee like I always did. I didn't. I poured one mug. Just mine. Sat at the table. Scrolled the news. Didn't even look up. I could feel her watching me, probably waiting for a question. Everything okay? Or rough night? But I gave her nothing. Just the quiet rhythm of a man who had already stopped caring. She cleared her throat. Said something casual about her meeting that day. I nodded once. Didn't follow up. Didn't ask how she felt about it. No interest. No warmth. She looked confused. Just for a second. That was day 1. By day 3, she started trying to pull me back in. Suggested we order from our favorite sushi place. I told her I wasn't hungry. I wasn't lying. My appetite for pretending had died the same night she told me she didn't love me. A week earlier, that kind of statement would have had me spinning, trying to fix things, make plans, prove my worth. I would have lit candles, bought her flowers, initiated some late-night talk. Not now. Now I let the space between us stretch. That night, she wore a dress I hadn't seen in years. The one I bought her for our anniversary. I walked in from the gym, sweat-damp shirt clinging to me, protein shake in hand. She smiled, like it was some kind of movie moment. I looked at her, said she looked nice, and walked past. No pause. No compliment. No invitation to sit. She didn't know it yet, but I'd already removed her from the center of my life. And the more I gave her nothing, the more she panicked behind her calm. She started texting me in the middle of the day, something she hadn't done in months. "Hope your day's going okay." I replied 6 hours later with, "Yeah." She sent a selfie 2 days later. Hair done, light makeup, smile aimed at the camera like a weapon. Caption, "Just feeling good today." I didn't respond. She stopped sleeping easily after that. I could hear her shifting in bed, sighing, reaching for her phone, scrolling through her apps like maybe something there could explain what was happening. But nothing explained it. Because I hadn't made a scene. I hadn't said I was done. I hadn't moved out. Hadn't yelled. Hadn't even flinched. All I did was stop reaching. Stopped showing up emotionally. Stopped filling the silence she used to count on me to break. Stopped softening the edges of her decisions. And that silence, it did more damage than any argument ever could. Because silence makes people sit with their choices. Really sit. No distractions. No scapegoats. She thought, I care about you, would earn her grace. What had earned her was emptiness. And now she was sitting in it. Alone. Still. Wondering when the warmth went out. It didn't go out. I took it with me. It wasn't just the silence she noticed. It was the subtraction. The absence of the man she once counted on to do all the emotional heavy lifting. The sudden shift from warmth to neutrality. I didn't withdraw affection like a punishment. I just stopped offering it like a gift she didn't value. The next Thursday night, she leaned against the doorframe in one of those silk robes she used to wear in the early days. Hair done, lips glossy, a glass of wine in her hand like some half-forgotten invitation. I was on the couch, reading. Calm. Steady. She hovered a little too long, then gave me a half-smile and asked if I wanted to join her upstairs. Said she was in the mood to reconnect. A month ago, I would have dropped everything. Now, I turned a page in my book and told her I was tired. Maybe another time. Her silence was louder than mine after that. She stood there for a second too long, then walked away. No argument. Just confusion. Quiet frustration. I didn't follow. Didn't explain. Didn't give her anything to work with. And that's when I knew she finally felt it. The shift. The power leaving her hands like sand she couldn't grip. Because she had been in control for so long. Deciding when we were close. When we talked. When she let the door crack open emotionally. And when she slammed it shut. Now the door was gone. And I was walking through walls she thought were hers to manage. The next day, I canceled our shared Spotify subscription. She noticed by evening. Asked if I knew why her playlists were gone. I said maybe the account expired. Didn't offer to fix it. That night, I took a longer shower than usual. She was already in bed by the time I got out. Eyes closed, back turned, but I could tell she wasn't asleep. Her breathing was too shallow, too rehearsed. She was waiting for me to crawl in next to her, to initiate some conversation. A hug, a peace treaty. I didn't. I slept in the guest room. No explanation. No drama. The next morning, she stood in the hallway, towel wrapped tight, arms crossed, and asked if everything was okay. I said everything was fine. Because it was, for me. I had clarity now. That thing she always claimed she needed, the reason she pulled away, went quiet, stopped trying. Except now, I was the one with clarity. And I wasn't using it to fix us. I was using it to exit, quietly, precisely, like someone packing their soul in boxes she'd never open. She thought she could lose interest in me, and I'd wait. She was wrong. I wasn't waiting. I was walking. And every day she felt the weight of that decision a little more. The irony of detachment is how loud it becomes once the silence grows roots. I had always been the consistent one. The one who showed up. Who noticed her haircuts. Who remembered the brand of chocolate she liked when she had a rough day. I was the steady background music to her life. Until I wasn't. It started with the little things. The ones she assumed she was entitled to. No more morning texts from me. No more offers to rub her neck after a long day. No more checking in when she worked late. I wasn't cold. Just absent. She didn't understand it yet. But she was becoming a stranger to someone who used to orbit around her. I stopped waiting for her moods to shift back to affection. Stopped hoping for one of those rare evenings when she'd actually lean in instead of away. I had accepted the truth she tried to soften with her careful wording. She didn't love me. Fine. She'd see what it felt like to be with someone who didn't love her back, but without the yelling, without the theatrics. Just stillness. Distance. She tried to compensate with behavior. One evening, she made my favorite pasta. Candles lit. Music playing. A scene from a memory she probably thought she could recreate. I walked in, smelled the garlic, saw the effort, and thanked her, like she was a polite coworker who brought in cookies. I ate in silence. No compliments. No false warmth. When she reached across the table to touch my hand, I shifted to grab my water, pretending not to notice. She pulled her hand back slowly. I didn't look up. Later that night, She lingered in the doorway of the guest room, holding a blanket in her arms like a peace offering. She asked if I was sleeping in there permanently. I told her it was quieter. She didn't respond, just stood there, half in shadow, waiting for me to give her a sign, any sign, that she still mattered. But I had already buried that part of me, and silence was the tombstone. Over the next few days, she ramped it up, started texting me midday again. Sent a photo of our dog curled up on the couch. Wrote, "He misses you." I didn't reply. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. Because love isn't proven through longing. It's maintained through presence, through action. And I had been present for far too long for someone who considered me optional. Now, I was the one who disappeared. No slammed doors. No cryptic goodbyes. Just a slow, deliberate fade out from the life of someone who took consistency as weakness. She thought she could hit pause on her feelings, and I would wait on standby. She didn't realize I'd already changed the channel. For years, I handled everything behind the scenes. Bills, budgeting, subscriptions. Her lifestyle was quietly funded by a man she thought would never leave. That illusion ended quietly, like everything else. It started with one account, our joint credit card. I logged in, moved the payment responsibility back to my name alone, and canceled all the extras she never even knew I was covering. That subscription she used for her skincare products? Gone. The streaming platforms she used for her yoga videos? Cut off. The automatic food delivery app she relied on when she didn't feel like cooking? Canceled. She noticed within 3 days. I came home to her standing in front of the TV, remote in hand, frowning like something was broken. She asked if I knew why the login wasn't working. I told her it must have been a glitch. She looked at me for a second too long. She knew. She just didn't want to say it out loud. That weekend, I rerouted part of my direct deposit into a private savings account. Clean. Quiet. No shared access. I changed the password on the budgeting app she never checked anyway. She never noticed how much I managed. Until I stopped. The next week, the car insurance renewal came due. Normally, I would have paid it automatically, same day. This time I waited. She brought it up, annoyed, said she got a notice in her email. I told her I hadn't gotten around to it yet. She stared at me, said she thought I always handled it. I nodded, told her things change. That night, she stayed unusually quiet. No effort. No texts. No let's talk. She was processing it. The imbalance. The fact that the man she didn't love anymore had been the one holding up the entire frame of her lifestyle. It wasn't about punishing her. It was about setting the record straight, reminding her that comfort has a cost. And I was no longer paying. I started packing small things into the guest room. Not clothes. Not toiletries. Just files. Important documents. My passport. A few photos that mattered to me and no one else. I was separating the emotional from the logistical. When she opened the hallway closet 2 nights later and saw a few of my boxes neatly stacked, she didn't say anything. She closed the door slowly. But I saw it. The first real flicker of fear. Not panic. Not drama. Just realization that the man she used to take for granted had become someone she couldn't predict. And unpredictability is the one thing a person addicted to control can't handle. She had told me she cared, but wasn't in love. I believed her. And now she was learning what it meant when a man believed you. Because believing her meant unbuilding the life she thought was permanent. One transaction at a time. There's a particular silence that settles when you stop being emotionally available. Not just at home, but everywhere else too. I stopped covering for her. I stopped smiling through the discomfort. I stopped pretending everything was fine when people asked. And that silence, that shift, didn't stay behind closed doors. It traveled. Her sister was the first to notice. They met for lunch on a Saturday. Normally, I'd remind her about the time, gas up her car, even suggest a nice spot nearby. This time, I didn't say a word. She walked out in a rush, half-dressed, frustrated that she had to figure it out alone. When she got back, she didn't talk about the food or the conversation, just stood near the kitchen, tapping her nails against the counter like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. I already knew what happened. Her sister had asked about us. Probably said something like, "You guys seem different. He seems distant." And she didn't have a script for that, because the version of me she had memorized no longer existed. Later that week, her friend Amanda, one of the few people I used to actually get along with, sent me a text. Something vague. Polite. Hey, just checking in. You good? I replied with a simple, better than I've been in a long time. No follow-up from her after that. But I knew it would circulate. She couldn't control the narrative anymore. Not at dinner. Not at brunch. Not at girls' night. She could spin it any way she wanted, but people weren't blind. They could see the cracks she used to cover with humor, with distractions, with photos filtered just enough to look perfect. The truth was leaking through, and it wasn't coming from me. I stayed silent. Let her try to fill the gaps with her version. But you can't lie your way through distance. Not when everyone around you feels it too. The tension in the house had gone from subtle to sharp. One morning, I caught her standing at the doorway of the guest room, just staring inside. She didn't say a word, just looked at the half-packed boxes, the folded documents, the items that once lived in our shared space. She stood there like she was visiting someone else's life. Because in a way, she was. The man she remembered. The one who made playlists for road trips, left notes in her purse, built a world around her smile. He was gone. And the version of me that remained wasn't angry. He was just finished. People were noticing. Friends, family, co-workers. The woman who used to get sympathy for her overwhelmed husband was now getting questions she didn't have answers for. Because when a man pulls away quietly, strategically, the story doesn't collapse. It dissolves. And she was running out of ways to explain the silence that wasn't hers to break. It took 27 days. That's how long it took for the controlled silence, the distance, and the absence of comfort to finally force her hand. She came home early that night. I was in the backyard, fixing the lock on the gate. A quiet task, one that gave me just enough space to think without thinking. She stood there watching me for a moment, arms crossed, like she was trying to decide who I was now. I didn't look up. Eventually, she walked closer and said she missed the way things used to be. Her voice was soft, rehearsed, carefully vulnerable. I nodded once. No emotion, just acknowledgement. She waited, expected something more, maybe a smile, a question, a signal that I was thawing. I didn't give it. She tried again the next night. This time, it was a memory. She brought up a beach trip we took 3 summers ago. Said she'd been thinking about it. How simple things used to be. How happy we looked in that photo she kept on her phone. I told her I didn't remember. She blinked, clearly shaken. That photo had been her favorite, her lock screen for months. But I did remember. I just didn't care to relive it. Because nostalgia is a luxury you earn by preserving something. She hadn't preserved anything. She had confessed she wasn't in love with me. Not in frustration. Not in a moment of weakness. But in calm, detached clarity. And now she was realizing what it felt like when the clarity went both ways. The next week, I booked a solo weekend trip. Cabin in the mountains. Just me, a fire, and peace. I left her a note. Nothing cold. Just factual. Taking some time to reset. Be back Monday. No invitation. No discussion. When I returned, the energy in the house had shifted again. This time, it was her moving through it like a ghost. Trying to find something familiar in a space that no longer responded to her presence. The next morning, she placed her hand on my arm as I made coffee. A gentle touch, the kind she hadn't offered in months. I moved my arm to reach for the sugar, acting like I didn't notice. She stood there, frozen, hands still midair, like she didn't know what to do with the rejection. That was the first time she cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, just stood in the hallway later that night, wiping her face, staring out the window like it would give her some answer. I didn't console her. Not because I enjoyed watching her break, but because I knew what she was really mourning. Not me. Control. She hadn't lost the man. She'd lost the ability to predict him. And that was something she couldn't reverse. It came out quietly, almost like she hoped I wouldn't hear it. I was folding laundry in the guest room. The door was open. She stood in the hallway, her voice barely above a whisper. Do you still love me? That's the kind of question you only ask when you already know the answer. I didn't look up, just kept folding. T-shirt, socks, another shirt. Then I answered, I care about you, but I'm not in love with you. The same line she gave me, word for word, delivered with the same calm detachment. She didn't say anything, didn't move. The silence stretched so long, I wasn't sure if she'd left or collapsed in place. When I finally turned around, she was still there, shoulders tense, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. That's when it hit her. Not the words, The mirror. Because hearing your own line echoed back is different when you're on the receiving end. When it's no longer a position of control, but a verdict. She took a step back. Not physically, but emotionally. I saw it happen. That quiet, hollow realization that she'd played the game too long. Misread the cues. Thought my silence meant softness, when really, it was steel. She didn't cry this time. No, this was something else. Stillness. A frozen kind of regret. I walked past her, laundry basket under my arm, and said nothing else. Just went back to living my life. The one that no longer included her in the center. From that moment forward, her entire behavior shifted. No more attempts at flirting. No more texts in the middle of the day. She started moving around the house like a guest. Polite, distant, uncertain. I didn't punish her with cruelty. I just stopped returning to the version of me she remembered. One night, I came home to dinner on the table. Candles, wine, music playing softly in the background. The same scene we used to create together, back when things were real. She sat at the table, waiting. I didn't sit down. Told her I'd already eaten. Her eyes dropped to the plate. Her hands were shaking. And still, I didn't explain myself. Because what was there to explain? She had told me exactly what she felt. I believed her. She just never expected me to do the same. People like her never think the warmth will actually run out. They think they can withdraw love like it's a loan that will always be forgiven. But love isn't credit. It's presence. And mine had already been repossessed. She stopped sleeping in our bedroom. That was the first sign she'd finally accepted it, whatever it was in her head. Maybe not the end. Maybe not the consequence. But something had broken loose, and she knew it. I didn't ask why she moved her things. Didn't mention the empty side of the bed. Didn't acknowledge the obvious. I had said everything I needed to without raising my voice. Without spelling out the plan. And now, I was just following through. One quiet morning, she left a note on the kitchen counter. Folded once. My name written on the outside like it was something meaningful. I read it after I finished my coffee. It wasn't long. Just a few lines. She said she was sorry. That she hadn't realized how much I did. How much I carried. How invisible she'd made me feel. She wrote that she hadn't meant to fall out of love, but maybe she'd fallen out of herself, too. She said she still cared. She hoped, maybe, someday, I'd forgive her. I folded the note back up. Placed it in the drawer with the old receipts. The ones from dinners I used to plan. Gifts I used to buy. Hotels I used to surprise her with just to make her smile. I didn't write back. Because that note wasn't for me. It was for her. She wanted to feel like she tried. But apologies don't reverse momentum. They don't rebuild bridges already burned down from both sides. A few days later, she knocked on the guest room door before entering. That was new. She asked if I had a minute. I nodded. She didn't sit. Just stood there, looking smaller than I remembered. She said she thought maybe we could talk. Try. Reconnect. She said maybe we'd both been distant. Maybe we both had something to fix. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw it. Regret. Not the performative kind. The real thing. But regret doesn't heal what indifference already killed. So I told her the truth. That I didn't hate her. That I didn't resent her. That I simply didn't feel anything anymore. And that was worse. Because when love turns to hate, there's still energy. Still fire. But when love turns to silence, real silence, it's gone. Her eyes glossed over. She nodded. Said she understood. I don't know if she did. But she walked out without another word. And that night, the house felt quieter than it ever had. Not heavy. Not angry. Just final. The morning I left, the sky was overcast. Not dramatic. Not stormy. Just quiet. Still. Like the air was holding its breath. I had packed the last box the night before. Nothing emotional. No framed photos. No memories wrapped in sweaters. Just essentials. Documents. Clothes. My laptop. The watch my father gave me. A few things that still felt like mine. I waited until she left for work. Didn't want a conversation. Didn't want tears. Didn't want one final attempt at repair. We'd already passed that mile marker, and I wasn't circling back. I moved methodically. Cleaned out the drawers. Stripped the bed. Left the guest room neater than I found it. By the time I zipped the last duffel, the house didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like a museum of echoes. The photos on the wall still told a story that didn't exist. The magnets on the fridge still held memories that had expired. Even the scent of the place, faint vanilla, her favorite candle, smelled like a version of me I didn't recognize anymore. I walked through each room once, not to reminisce, to confirm I had nothing left behind, nothing worth retrieving. Before leaving, I wrote one note. Not dramatic, not emotional, just truth. You were honest. You didn't love me. I listened. I didn't love you back. That's all. I placed it on the kitchen counter, next to the folded one she left me days earlier. It didn't need a name. She'd know. I locked the front door behind me, dropped the keys in the mailbox, walked to the car with my shoulders loose, my chest light, my breath steady. There was no rush, no last glance at the window, no music playing to underscore the moment. Just me, a full tank of gas, and a direction that wasn't backwards. She texted later that night. Not a paragraph. Just 3 words. You really left. I didn't reply, not because I wanted to hurt her, but because nothing I could say would be quieter than the silence she created, and I simply finished. She taught me how to disappear. I just learned faster. And now, she'd live with that echo. Not of my voice, but of my absence. And if she ever tells the story, I hope she remembers the final line I left behind in silence. You said you cared, but weren't in love. So I gave you what that looks like. Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe. This is where we talk about what doesn't get forgiven.